This is the Post Shift Podcast, a raw look at the hospitality industry.
What's happening, Post Shifters, and welcome to another episode of the Post Shift Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Shawn Soole. This week I want to reflect on sort of what I talked with Sterling last week about dealing with failures and bouncing back and resilience and persistence and all these things. I get called resilient a lot. I always laugh because if you've listened to any of my podcasts, you know that I've always gone through this whole sort of emotional how to bounce back bullshit, not trying to be a motivational speaker whatsoever crap, to try and talk about how to bounce back and be resilient. And I think I've learned to bounce back a little bit quicker these days than before. I used to take people's opinions really highly. It's probably my father's upbringing on that one, because my mother and father always said, regardless of how good you are, there's always someone out there better than you. And whatever you do, just make sure you're the best at it. So it's a very conflicting message that makes you drive much harder. So when you do fail, it does hurt a lot more because you feel like you've given everything. I think I bounce back much more now because I really try and work through the issues and my feelings and everything really quickly. And I think the hardest thing when it comes to failure, I listen to a lot of Gary Vee. If you haven't already heard me endlessly talking about Gary Vee. And his motto of like not giving a fuck what people think about you and all this sort of stuff, I think is extremely hard in the hospitality industry. I think it's an extremely hard thing in the hospitality industry, mainly because we're people pleasers. At the end of the day, we're genetically dispositioned, if you're in the industry, to serve people, welcome you into their restaurant, give them the best service and the best experience you can. So when you get gut punched by a failure, it hits you a little bit deeper because you take it so aggressively personal. And you worry about what other people think because that's what we do. We're people pleasers. We want to make everybody happy. And of course, making everybody happy is based around their opinion of you. I think it's become a little bit easier for me in recent months with me not working the bar or the floor anywhere, and sort of focusing on my consultancy stuff and the other side projects that I have, book tours and stuff like that. But even with the books, like there's always every great success can come with equally great failure. And there are times where I have to remind myself that just because everything's going really well right now, that something bad's coming, because that's in my head. That's sort of how it works. It has since I was a kid. I moved a lot. I had a very fractured upbringing when it comes to growing up. I went to 14 different schools, moved massive amounts of area, and I think that sort of led to a lot of it. And so, but what I try and do now is that whenever I feel like that deep pit in my stomach, like I've done something wrong by somebody, doesn't really matter who, doesn't really matter if it's in my head or not, I try and take a couple of breaths and really try and focus that in as like, at the end of the day, their opinion doesn't matter. They can think what they want, they can say what they want. Social media is really hard these days because like it really gets blown out there really quickly. But it's something you deal with because you have to take a breath and go, you know what, at the end of the day, you feel like you've done the right thing. And if you haven't, you should really reach out to the person that you think is feeling this way and talk to them. But you really should remember is that people are going to say stuff. People are going to have their own opinions of you. They may not ever get to know you very well. But at the end of the day, they're not going to be there on the deathbed. They're not paying your bills when you're at the bank. They're not behind you paying you compliments to pay your rent, and it works equally. Like negative feedback and positive feedback can both change the way your dynamic in life really can be changed. And so you've always got to have great amount of confidence and respect for yourself. Have self-awareness. I talked about self-gratification over gratitude a couple of weeks ago, which was a big one for me. And this takes a long time, guys. Like, I'm almost 40 and I'm still trying to work out how to make this sort of mentality in my head. I'm not a rah motivational fucking wanker that's like, you can do it, because it's not as easy as listening to a podcast like this one or any of the other millions of podcasts that are on Apple or Spotify or whatever, and next day changing the way you think. This is a slow progression, but you've got to always reinforce yourself that you are you. You're doing what you're doing. Last week I talked about you holding the remote control to your life. Really look at that. You can control your happiness. If you're not happy in your job, change it. If you feel like people are trash talking you for any reason, rise above and prove them wrong. Because at the end of the day, the only way you can do it is like really just keep pushing yourself, keeping your blinkers on to a degree, and just forcing yourself towards the goal. So this is my little how to reflect on failures, because you're going to have big failures in your life, whether it be a marriage, whether it be a job that you think, losing your own fucking restaurant twice. These things happen, and failures can really put you in a hole. But you need to take that time, teach us, like, breathe and like self-reflect on yourself, and make sure you don't do the same mistake, hopefully, again. And keep rising above, because there's going to be people who have assumptions about you. And I remember hearing something that was very perfect for this, is that you have an assumption on yourself, but every single person you meet in your life, whether it be a random meeting in the street or a sit-down conversation or a dinner party or whatever, there is millions and millions and millions of different people who have a different reflection on who you are. So you're the only person that knows who the real reflection is. Lean into your reflection, be the best possible person you can possibly be, and then everybody else's reflection may align, may not align, but the best you can do is be happy and comfortable in your own skin. So on that note, reflecting on failures is a big one. Self-awareness, be grateful, have gratitude to yourself, have gratitude to what you have. If you're living in Canada, you have a wonderful, wonderful amount of resources in Canada to achieve all your goals. Fuck, the internet is huge. You can do anything you want to do. You can bounce back from any failure. The only thing that you can't bounce back from is like getting cancer and dying, or your parents dying. Stuff like this is the real heavy stuff. Losing your job, getting called an asshole, things like that. They're little micro crap. Look at the macro, keep your eye on the prize, and you'll win. On that note, guys, have a good week. It's the Post Shift Podcast. This Friday, I'm not sure who I've got on this Friday. We'll have to see. But really looking forward. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate everybody listening in. And have a good week, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Post Shifters. I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you're listening, whatever platform you're on, give me a good rating, subscribe, listen along. I'm going to keep going. I really enjoy sitting down with people and learning where they're from, what they did, and how they got to where they were. So if you love it, give me a good 5 stars. If you don't, give me 1 and I'll try harder.